Hello everyone, my name is Egidio and welcome to our short video about Lecture 1 from Harvard's course CS50's Web Programming with Python and JavaScript. Today we'll learn about version control, how we can create and develop our projects, keeping track of all the changes we make in a way that it will be possible to work with a lot of people on the same project, on the same file, even in the same line if you want. And also, click on the page on the description to get the 3 steps you can take to become a web developer without a degree. So let's start. Well, our main topic will be version control, and Git will be the tool that we will use to control our project's versions. So basically, Git keeps track of the changes we make on our project. So we can create a file, we can add, edit, or remove a line in this file. And also, besides keeping track of all the changes, we usually don't store our project locally. We don't store in our notebook or inside our computer. We put our project updated in a repository stored on the web. And the place that we will let our repository stored is called GitHub. So basically, Git is the tool that we will use to control our versions, and our repository will be stored inside GitHub. So here is an example of some common lines, but let's use the project 0 as an example. On project 0, you will have to create a front end like Google Search or Google Image. And we have this file here that is the start of our project, and we'll create a repository on GitHub to start our project. So basically you go to your GitHub webpage, and there's the repositories tab. You click here on new. There's the repository name, so let's call CS50W project 0. We can put a description here, test repository for short video, test repository for our short video. If you let your repository public, anyone will be able to read and copy your project. If you keep it private, only you with your credentials will be able to access it. Okay, and a README you will find in a lot of projects, and the README is basically the introduction step of your project. If I go to your project, you can find all the details and information from developer to developer, like some hints or the main context you need to understand the project you're accessing. So let's create a repository. So now our project exists inside GitHub. And the first thing we need to do is to get a copy of this project to our local workspace. So let's copy this content to our computer using the method git clone on our command line. So let's copy this repository to our computer using the command git clone. So I'll open the terminal here. I'm using the Visual Studio Code, but it's up to you. You can use the on terminal or the one inside it. And well, here we are. And let's type just git. So we can check here that git is installed in my computer. And if I type git clone and I paste the link, Git will automatically download this project as a folder. So if you type like dir, we can see here that there's the folder of our project. So let's open now our repository. So we have saved our repository here. Let's open it on Visual Studio Code. And here it is. We only have the README file. So let's add the index file from the project 0, the start file that we need to work on. We've added the file in our repository, but it's just locally. If we check our repository online, we can see that there's no file here. So we need to make this information get in the remote repository. Well, the first thing we need to do is to save these changes. We need to commit these changes to our remote repository. So first of all, we type git status to check how our files are. Well, Git knows which files it needs to track and which files it doesn't need to track. So as this one is a new file, we need to tell Git if he should track or not. So let's add this file to be tracked. There's a warning, but there's no problem. So if we type git status again, it will say that there's something new in our project and it's a new file. So let's add this file to be committed, and also let's add the information here in the README file. This is the first repository. So we've created a new file and we've modified another one. So let's type git status again, and we can see that, okay, I'm tracking that you've created a file, but I'm not tracking that you've modified a file. So let's add that to be committed. Okay, now Git is tracking all the changes we've made. Now that Git is tracking, we can save these changes as a commit. So we will type git commit, and Git will know that these changes will be saved as a step of our project. We type git commit -m and then the message that we want to let on this commit. Instead of checking all the changes you've made in a commit, you can just read the message that the developer let for that commit. So example, you can say created index file and updated readme. There was a typo there. I typed commit with 3 M's. So let's correct that. Okay, so now these two changes are saved in my repository, but it is saved only in my local repository. If we check our repository on GitHub, you can see that there's no such file there. There's no new file here. So now we need to push this information from our local project to our remote repository. So how we can do that? Well, if we want to push our content, we need to push, okay? If you type just git push, it will take the information we have locally and will put in the remote repository in our origin of information. So you can see that I will type git push, and then Git will send this information to GitHub, to our remote repository. If we refresh the page, you can see here that now our README is updated and the index file is here too. The GitHub platform is good because sometimes if you need to do some changes, you can just edit the file directly on the platform. So let's update the README file. This is the first repository, and check this link. And then this is the new information you want to set here. Well, you don't need to use the terminal again because GitHub has its own space to inform the message of your commit. And this is the default one, update readme.md. You can change it, okay, but let's keep the same, this one, and let's commit. So now you can see that our project is updated directly in the remote repository. But if we check our project here, there's no link. As we have to push the information from the local repository to the remote, now we have the opposite. We have new information in the remote repository, and we need to bring that information to our local repository. If we need to pull this information, you can type git pull. Git pull will bring the information from your remote to your local repository. So you have the updated information also in your computer. So you can see here that now the link is on the README file, and then our project is updated also locally. So, all right, so now what does it happen if we change our remote and we change our local at the same time. Let's try to do that. Let's pretend that someone added the index page and pushed to the remote repository. Let us say that our friend, our coworker, changed the title of our HTML file.